Hi, I'm Steve Benitez, the UK representative of Pencak Silat Hasil Kampenu, Minangkabau Angin and Cimande, which are three different styles. On my right-hand side is Christopher Aguilar, and on my left-hand side is Alvin Ginanau, both full-time instructors who assist me in teaching Pencak Silat. Pencak Silat is known as an Indonesian fighting art, and all over Indonesia you will find many different accounts of how Pencak Silat evolved and started. Every teacher has its own history. The history that I'd like to share today is the history from the Silat Tuo school in Minangkabau, which is one of the oldest Silat schools. This history was orally passed down to me, not just by one teacher, but by several teachers throughout the whole of Indonesia. And the history which I think is most correct is the history according to Guru Ed from the Silat Tuo Minangkabau school. Alexander the Great had a nephew who was commissioned to go to Indonesia, Sumatra, to start a kingdom. And he was sent with 4 bodyguards, one from India, one from Persia, one from Siam, and one from China. Each of these bodyguards had different styles, different fighting arts. The one from India had a very distinct art whereby he would attack the points, which the Indians call the marma points. On the body there are 108 marma points, and this art from India was very direct in hitting these points. The Persian bodyguard had a very distinct grappling art, which can be seen today in Persia. The one from Siam, which is modern-day Thailand, had an art that was called kucing, or cat style, and focused on ground techniques, sweeps, locks, but mainly on the ground. And last but not least was the Chinese bodyguard, who had a very slow, smooth way of fighting, which only had 8 movements. Now these bodyguards decided to put their arts together and combine them. How much time this took, I don't know, but what I do know is that when they put it together, they decided to call it Silek. And Silek means self-defense. When the first generation learnt Silek, it was then passed down as Silat Tuo, which means Silek, old style. And then as this art continued to flourish and grow and to be passed down from generation to generation, Silek was then called the name of the village, or a name of a person, or a name of a characteristic, or a name of an animal that resembled the movements, or so forth. And this to me is probably the most accurate history that I can give you in Silat, which is why when we see Silat, we see aspects of grappling, aspects of throwing, locking, choking. We see very low ground movements. We see very soft movements. And we see strikes to the pressure points. One of the first foundational proverbs in Pencak Silat is that unless a seed falls down, it cannot live. And so every Silat style, every traditional style in Indonesia starts from the earth. The ground movements in Silat are not only there to teach you applications, but are there to give you a whole body conditioning. You won't see this on this DVD, but in the future ones you will see conditioning tapes whereby the whole body, back and front, side, from the top to the bottom, undergoes a tremendous amount of work so that you develop strength and also balance of the physiology of the body. So that's also why we train on the floor. Silat never changes. In actual fact, it's the same. The same way that we fight on the floor, the same movements we use on the floor, the same entry techniques, the same sweeps, the same locks, the same strikes, the same mobility on the floor is exactly the same as we would use in mid-range, long range, short range, or very upright. So if you swept someone or choked someone, you wouldn't hold on to that person, simply because of the geography and the cultural aspects. Indonesia is a very populated island. So if you were caught in a fight in Indonesia, it wouldn't be 1 against 1. So you wouldn't have time to grapple someone because you would soon find 2 or 3 people jumping on your back. So all the ground techniques have that in mind. They're swift, they're quick, and they're always on the move. One of the key principles in Silat from the beginning, which means the floor, the ground fighting, or an upright, you'll see something, a string, right through it. And this is birthed through the gelek, or gale, depending on the different translation. Gelek means to twist, to coil, to turn. And Silat is very much a coiling, twisting art. And this is because it becomes very circular. It's also to develop power. So for example, you'll see every time Alvin or Chris throws a punch, there is a twisting motion, and this is to empower the student to release power, but also to continue the next array of movements. Silat is not done just one movement, it's usually defended with 6 or 7 or even 9 hits per time. So you need this continuous coiling going on. As I said earlier, in Pencak Silat, one starts on the floor, where he learns his basic hand techniques, he learns his sweeps, locks, chokes, opening positions, closing positions, and most of his conditioning. Now usually the guru or the teacher will advance that student upwards when the student has a good foundation. This really is determined by how quickly the student learns, how quickly the body has taken in the condition and allowed the student really to kind of materialize that in a self-defense situation, but also from a character point of view. Usually Silat has a lot to do with humility. And so when a student has all these components, both physically, also mentally, the teacher would allow the student then to stand up and then take Silat from the next phase, which is kind of midsection. As you can see, Pencak Silat has a lot of coiling movements and a lot of coiling techniques, and this is because of the Gelek. Gelek means to twist and coil. As you've seen on the floor earlier, there are a lot of evading movements which have been inspired by the Gelek, this twisting motion. As the student rises up on its feet, the Gelek becomes more and more efficient. And you'll notice now as Alvin and Chris are flowing through their techniques, you'll notice that they're twisting and coiling, twisting to punch and twisting to evade and to block. And so this Gelek later on will become useful and will train the students in multiple attackers. As we say in Silat, one twist will lead to many strikes, or one twist will lead to many evasions. The Gelek is entwined with the footwork in Pencak Silat. And again, I said that the Gelek is entwined with every movement of Silat. Langkah in Silat is one of the most important aspects, principles in Silat. It means footwork. In Silat, if you step wrong, you will strike wrong. Or if you step wrong, you will evade wrong. Or if you step wrong, you will block wrong. And so what happens in Silat is we usually break the hands and the feet down and then join them together. As you can see now, Alvin and Chris are using two main langkahs. We call the first one L step and the second one Depok. You can see it very clearly there, the stepping and the Gelek entwined. Although some of these movements look peculiar, in actual fact they're very, very natural. If someone was coming to you in speed and you stepped aside and used what we call the depok, you would naturally, by the position you're in, respond backwards using the Gaelic, because it's just very natural for the body to move like that. After a while, the student learns to pick up a knife. Although we see the knife as a separate entity, in actual fact, it just becomes an extension of the body. So for example, if you were learning basic hand techniques, these basic hand techniques will be employed against open hand. The same hand techniques can be used as knife strikes or knife blocks. And so right from the beginning to the end, a Silat man could pick up a weapon with very, very minimal training, because these are natural movements that can be used with a knife. And the same could be applied against a knife. The knife in Pencak Silat, or the kris as we say, the traditional weapon of Indonesia, is also used to quicken the reflexes of a student, as well as train the student to use their langkah and know their ranges. Students in our school usually start off after 6 months with basic knife training, just to get used to training with an extension in their hand. But they will find if they learn their basic footwork, as you've seen, the movements to defend yourself against a knife will come quite naturally. In Silat, you have no time really to engage in grappling someone and holding him. So you wouldn't apply a choke and hold him. And this is because in Indonesia they fight in multiples and also with bladed weapons. Yeah? So notice here the grappling is done very swiftly and very flowing. So if you were grappling someone in Silat, you might apply a choke, but it would be on the move. As you can see, Alvin and I are now engaged in what we call ampe-ampe. Ampe-ampe means 4-4. 4-4 are movements done in sequences of 4, which then allow the student to follow the movement, not fighting against the movement. And you can see us doing this in grappling. So as Alvin grapples my neck, I follow the movement through and turn into something else. As he grapples my arm or my wrist, I again follow through. As you can see very clearly that the movements are exactly the same, whether they're done with a knife or against a knife or on the floor. Even when we grapple, the langkah, the footwork, is the same. Pencak Silat, as seen and demonstrated, is not a sport and didn't evolve out of sport. Pencak Silat evolved on the battlefield. It was the way in which Indonesia defended itself. It was the way in which clans, people, individual groups of people defended themselves. It's been tried and tested over thousands of years. There is, however, a very soft side to Pencak Silat. We call this the female aspects of Silat. In Silat you have the male aspects, which deal with the logistics, the strategy, the calculative side of fighting, and then we have the female aspects of Silat, which develop intuition, relaxation, and sensitivity. I'm saying this because you are now going to see the soft side of Pencak Silat, the kembangan. We hope you've enjoyed this introduction to Pencak Silat. In the future, we'll be making some more instructional videotapes, which I hope will give you a thorough understanding of this beautiful Indonesian art.